Alpha, a rare recorded episode. I'm Pio. I'm here with Easy Eats Bodega, the Solana specialist, the Solana master, the Solana mastermind. And this is a rare pre-recorded episode. We are recording this the night before it's going to come out. So if any, the NFT space moves fast, if any of the information is dated, our apologies in advance. This is the Market and Trade Talk show. And whenever Easy Eats is on, it is the Solana edition. If you enjoy this content, make sure you smash that subscribe button. It really helps us out. Make sure you subscribe. Easy. It's how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Excited to kind of talk about what's happening in this space where I tend to frequent. And if you check out the Discord, you'll see all the Solana happenings in real time as we talk about those. So definitely join the Nifty Alpha Discord. But yeah, excited. Thanks for having me again. I love to be here.
Absolutely, man. You're welcome anytime. Thanks for plugging the Discord. So this is the week of Art Basel in Miami, which is a big time like art sort of. I don't know if you'd call it a conference, like festival, series of events that are art related. As you can imagine, the NFT space will be present there for that festival, and it seems that this Boryaku Dragonz, which is becoming one of the blue chips, if not like the top blue chip besides Solana Monkey Business. Obviously, correct me if I'm wrong. You're the expert. But yeah, so what's going on with this Boryaku Dragonz? Is this a news event that has to do with Art Basel? What do you make of this?
So this is really interesting. And what you're actually showing is their 10th and final legendary dragon. So these dragons, they released, it's a 1,111 supply at 1.11, almost 3 weeks ago. They did take about 20 minutes to sell out. So I know everyone in the world is kicking themselves now. The floor is well over 200. We're looking at like a 230 soul floor. It's just
Damn.
progressively continued to creep up. Hit secondary. It actually was not on Magic Eden right away. So it started off on Digitalize, which is a marketplace on Sol that tends to have some traction, not great traction. So we actually saw the price of these fluctuate between 9 down to 5, then back to 9. Then it hit Magic Eden. In the base versions of this, they're kind of non-moving. Only the legendaries are gifts, like we can see. Those ones ended up settling right around 13 before catching another pump, and this is all within the first 2 hours of them minting, up to 25. So they had immediate steam out of the gate. I actually missed the mint, bought one on secondary at 13, sold it at 25, still made $2,000 about, and I'm still kicking myself over it because these are now going for 40,000, 35, 40, $50,000 consistently every day. What's interesting about them is that they were really the first in the Solana space to immediately be like, all right, we're going to do a stealth mint. We're only going to kind of leak this information to some of these major DAOs. So you mentioned one, Solana Monkey Business actually had some insight knowledge into this. They did not mint a ton of these. Some did, some did not. But because of that, it ended up kind of spreading from there. I got a hold of the link, missed the link because I was out, saw what was happening on secondary right when I got home, decided to hop in. I know a few people who minted 20 of these and are still holding all 20. So it's pretty wild to see what's happening with them. It was one of the first kind of pixel arts that looked good. It wasn't like this Fiverr art that was cheaply done and just kind of pumped out and the project forgotten about. They've delivered on everything they've promised. They announced a token the first day after mint called Boku. They did say Boku is going to be used for breeding Gen 2, and they have now delivered Gen 2. So what's crazy is this one, the King, is the 10th. They've been hyping up the release of this legendary. All of their legendaries are one-of-one auctions. So I know we took a look at some of those last week. Just looking at some of those prices, I personally thought the very last number 9 of the legendaries was going to break 1,000 soul. It settled at 780. I'm extremely confident this one being an in-person piece at our Basel is going to break 1,000.
That's crazy, man. So yeah, this is, I guess, is this above Solana Monkey Business, or is Solana Monkey Business still the number one?
It officially flipped the SMBs as of 2 days ago. And I guess people call it market cap, but floor price to valuation to quantity. It has officially flipped SMBs. The Dragons have also bought land in Sandbox, making themselves the first DAO to do so. We know that there's an SMB in Sandbox. I think he handed that land over to the DAO, but it was originally just one individual who had acquired that. So this is the first time we're seeing Sol dip their toes into some of these metaverses. And I don't think there's a better option for who it could have been. This team's extremely strong. I believe it's a 6 to 8 person team. like I said, they just haven't missed a deliverable. So because of that, it's very unlike the Sol space. You have a lot of people with empty promises, kind of trying to deliver on things, not really fully understanding how to at times, and trying to chase some of these trends. With many times them being somewhat late. So they've done a very good job with the Dragons keeping that hype, pushing that floor, and really driving value from it. And as you're looking here at these Phoenixes, now we're seeing a lot of these projects mimic that success.
So this is not affiliated with Boryaku Dragonz. This is a different project.
Completely different project, completely separate. Same exact way that the rollout happened with the Dragons. They did a stealth mint, low supply, low quantity, low initial cost. And today, it might have been yesterday, they announced their token, have started airdropping that token. But I actually tweeted about these Phoenixes today because the total liquidity pool is about 2,000 USD. So I think the
Like
token's
nothing.
trading at like, it's nothing. And the token's trading at like $220 right now.
How
So
does that
I,
make any sense?
because no one's selling. So like I even said, it's like you sell one of those, there goes 200% of that coin value. It's gonna fall. Like not even fall. It's literally just gonna
It's
tank.
just over. It's a rug pull.
Yeah, it's game over. So they're doing the same kind of mentality here. It's like, hey, you get these, we give you a low supply. That's the biggest thing here. All of these are very short squeezy. And I say that because it's like low supply for even their token. I think Boryaku's got 49,620,000 or 42,629,69, 420,69 type thing. This is a flat cap at 5 million for their tokens on the Phoenixes. So both situations, the coin prices are seeing some of that short squeeze happening on them, which now with Boku, the previous Dragon token, being used with their release, so you can actually mint eggs on Magic Eden. Even those eggs are 70 to 100 Sol. These Phoenixes have not launched their breeding yet. They've teased screenshots of where you'll stake, have said you have to burn the token to get there. That's definitely the current meta in Solana at this time. So you're getting a lot of these projects, and if you actually notice here, there's only 51 of those dragons or Danjons listed, these Phoenixes. So 51 of 1,000 supply is absolutely nothing. So
Yeah.
that's kind of the other interesting thing. I think the Dragons too are at something like 20 total listed. So it's purely just a demand thing. If you don't have anybody listing, that floor price can be whatever people dictate it to be. And then in turn, the same goes for those coins and tokens. I think the Dragons are going to continue to be that blue chip, but we're not going to stop seeing some of these decent quality pixel art. I think a few people have actually found the Fiverr artists for some of these ones we're going to take a look at today. So it's kind of like they're just pumping these out, mimicking the roadmap. Since all this code is decentralized, it's very easy to find copy code and just kind of run with it. So we're seeing a lot of that too. So it's just a rather interesting time where it's like pixels, tokens, talking about Gen 2 or whatever the next thing is that you get from that first one, and burning the tokens is kind of that method to the madness here.
Yeah, so you're just starting to see a formula get developed and the different projects kind of operating in turn. I guess so Boryaku Dragons dropped it, you said 2 Sol or 1 Sol?
One soul was one each, 1.11. So they've
And then
stuck with that whole thing.
that's incredible. And then those Phoenixes you just showed, how much did those mint at?
Oh, those were under a soul each when those first released. I want to say it was something like zero point 0.3 to zero point 0.5 range around
And
there.
in the past week?
I think less than 4 days ago. Yeah, right around there. And now they're trading at 20. They broke 20, pulled back a little bit. It's crazy right now because like those gains, when you think about that, a zero point 0.3 to a 20 soul floor, you just went from spending $60 into what's that, 4 grand, give or take.
It's a lot more than 60 bucks. Did you get in on the
Yeah.
Phoenixes?
Secondary action. I was not actively trading it off of mint. It's just because when I look at these, I'm like, it's not going to be the next Dragons. I know I'm chasing this FOMO and this pump, so I tend to do better on secondary because it's just where I can actually see if there is demand and trade off of that volume. Where that was like the first thing I saw with the Dragons. The Phoenixes actually traded under mint cost the second they hit the secondary. They were slightly over, pulled all the way back, and we're only seeing these pumps the last like 2 or 3 days. So that's what's even more interesting is because they've kind of kept some of this close to the chest with the tokenomics, and then as soon as they push them out, everybody just absolutely steamrolls into the project.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And I know you're on it like white on rice. So it's interesting for me to hear, what you do get into and what you don't. Next project I know you'd kind of assigned for us is this one right here. So what's the story with this Taiyo Robotics?
So you're going to see kind of a trend here today. A lot of these projects are those same stealth mints. these robots were another one that a lot of people think this is going to be the next Dragon because the teams, I believe, somewhat doxed. We know their Twitter personalities. We don't know who exactly they are, but they've linked their personal Twitters, all which have decent metrics behind them. So it's like you like to hope that they don't want to just throw that like get rid of that rug and cause some issues with those things they've grown as well. So this team released these. You'll notice too, similar pixel style. It's a high quality pixel art. These ones, though, out of the gate, ended up trading 25 Sol floor right after mint. So I did mint 10 of these and scaled out from 10, 15, 18, right along that order. So great profit, great return. I was very happy with it. These actually pulled back very hard after that and
Oh,
got all the
nice.
way. Yeah, so I lucked out on that. Obviously, you can see now they've caught another pump and are back up, but they ended up trading like 5 or 6 Sol floor for 2 or 3 days. And much like the other two projects we looked at, though, they launched a token called Scrap. That token's used for breeding. That token breeds a second generation. You have to burn scrap. You only get like 3 or 4 scrap a day per robot. So low supply, low liquidity, low rollout. And it just seems to be that method for success. People think that it's a passive income. I know on the ETH side, we're looking at all these Ponzi on chain games. I think that's the next thing to hit Sol. But right now, it's all about these tokenomics, where we saw it slightly when obviously BAYC is nothing like this, but they caught a pump when they announced they were going to drop a token. We saw ENS's pump when their token immediately came out. When Scrap came out, it traded like 400% on the token, and these kicked right back up to that 20 Sol floor before pulling back here. So it's a fascinating time in the space because I like, as you've seen too, I'm starting to get dabble a little bit on some of these ETH projects as well,
Yeah.
and just seeing these differences between the two ecosystems is fascinating because it's like this project launched on ETH, it wouldn't get any of the traction. Like, oh great, I am getting a token that I have to burn. What does that do? Whereas on ETH also now we're having metaverse apartments and on-chain games, and those games are yielding 50,000 tokens a day. This robot yields 2 tokens a day. So it's just like it's so interesting to see the contrast between them.
Yeah, I mean it's a different ecosystem, right? And since I bought into this Immutable Apes X on Immutable X, that's kind of showed me also, excuse me, the difference in the ecosystems, the differences in what the way that they're traded. I think a lot of what you're talking about right now is the art styles and what the actual assets look like on Solana versus any other platform. But yeah, it's super interesting to me. It's also interesting to me how you seem to always be in on the right projects. What is your biggest loss that you've taken recently trading Solana NFTs? I think the audience would be interesting to hear about that because we hear about
So
a lot of wins. I want to hear about a
yeah.
loss.
So to be honest with you, I take losses almost every day in Sol. It's not as immediate because I tend to hold a lot of these projects because I know it's literally one news based event can push a floor from under zero point 0.1 all the way up to a 2 or 3 Sol floor so quickly.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like a lot of it's timing. And if you have the liquidity where you don't need to sell something right away, you're better off holding it to zero. These cost of entries are so low that I take a lot of gambles on some random projects. But right now, it's looking at this stuff. And I even said I missed on those Phoenixes. But many times when I am minting or minting heavy, like today, there was these turned up tikis that we can look at near the end of this.
Sure.
Someone had tapped me on the shoulder about it. Was like, "Hey, check these out. Relatively big size, like 3,600, which sounds crazy when you look at it from ETH because 10K still sell, and we even just saw a 10K sell out at 2 ETH each, which is banana lands. On Sol, that would just never happen. It's hard for a project to even sell out at 1 Sol each now. So for me, it's more when I start getting talked to about projects, I'm so quick to dive into the Discord, check the Twitter, look at metrics, and then if I actually with this project, I wasn't gonna mint it. Hopped on the mint website, started watching it, and the counter just absolutely flew. Like I'm talking 300 sales a minute. We're
At
watching it just at the mint time. So when it was
at
minting
point
at
one or
3,600, zero point 0.5, sorry. So these are 0.5. And it was just cruising because I was like, oh, this is a little bit high. It's higher than all these stealth mints, way higher quantity. And I saw their white paper for their tokenomics. They have 2 other generations coming out. The token's already out today on Dex Labs called Turnt. And that tomorrow they're immediately kicking off Gen 2, which is buying these tiki torches to burn. So the token gets burned for a tiki torch, which gets burned for what they call idols, which is the next NFT in the kind of grouping. And the idols earn more turn than these do at like a 2.5x rate. So we're now getting into a mix of like DeFi and NFTs. And this project, I honestly almost missed the boat on it. I was so torn on minting it because I was like high quantity, relatively high cost. And as I'm watching that counter, I'm then opening up 40 tabs and just spamming the mint button. Ended up getting 7 of them, still holding all 7. I think we see this break at 2 floor tomorrow personally. Um, it's real close right now, as you can see. It hadn't broken it earlier, right after mint. It got up to 1.8 before pulling back to 1 again. But I know this all started with like, what's a loss you take? This is a perfect example of that. This project very quickly could have gone south. Today, we've just seen a lot of legs in the Solana ecosystem, a lot of buying pressure. So on days like today, it almost makes more sense to mint everything because something's going to end up paying for the rest and more.
Fair enough. And I mean, even to be able to mint everything, you have to be on the ecosystem like white on rice because so many of these mints are stealth. You have to follow these Twitter accounts with notifications on. When you talk about metrics that you look at, you said you dive into the Discord, you dive onto the Twitter, you look at metrics. Can you give more detail on what metrics you're
Yeah.
actually looking at?
So a lot of this trading too, just coming from being familiar with like equities and stocks and everything else, which is way more liquid, it has a less of that psychological effect on it. Whereas NFTs seem to have a very large psychological grasp when it comes to that trading. So if you go into a Discord and everyone's typing in all capital letters, let's go, can't wait, when mint, when secondary, and it's the chat's moving so fast that anything you type will most likely go unnoticed. That's a good sign, especially on midday. It means there's a lot of people active. You got to look at the percentage as well, the online to total user count in Discords, because Discords are notorious for botting. So you want to get a fair understanding of roughly how many people are online is a good grasp of them minting at least one. So if you see 1,900 people online, 5,000 in the Discord, we're looking at almost a 40% online rate. That's a great metric to have, especially for a 3,600 count project, because that means if everyone mints 2, it's sold out. So when you start to break down some of that, it starts to look a little bit clearer. The same idea with Twitter. If you go onto their Twitter and they're getting a lot of retweets, a lot of favorites, engagement is high, even just something like a high follower count can be deceiving because obviously you can buy those Twitter followers. So I'm always scrolling down, trying to find, if I can, even that first tweet to see how well it was received when they first hit the market. Did a lot of people go back to retweet that first one? What's this kind of look like? Because when you have that social understanding, then it starts to incite some emotion from people when they mint or miss the mint, and then they want to get in on secondary. So you can continue to play into that and drive from that perspective. So when I say metrics, it's very much so online counts, retweets, and favorite counts. If you type a message in the Discord, how long till somebody types the next message? You want that activity. You want people involved, active, and you want it to almost be overwhelming because before mint, overwhelmingness is such a bullish sign for a project. It's not. It's almost clear as day.
Yeah, yeah, no, I love that. I love that you kind of have that little system that you've built out. So I want to pull up this other project, Meta Drago. What is the story with Meta Drago right now?
Yeah, so this is one that they've all, this was a little bit different on their tokenomics, which is interesting. Same idea. They haven't said anything with breeding. This one just simply posted a picture of a token. That's all it took. And these went from a point 0.3 to a 4 soul floor.
Wow.
All they did was post like a rendering of a 3D token spinning around, making movements. And it was like, okay, so this means we're probably going to have a token. And sure enough, everyone just decided to go absolutely crazy, aping into these projects. But what's funny too is it's like it's just another one of those. This one's the first one to be facing left of all things, you know. So it's like great, a left high quality pixel art with a token. Awesome.
Yeah. I mean, and another dragon, right? So I'm
Exactly.
assuming this came out after Boryaku Dragons. Would that be a
Yep.
fair assumption?
Yeah, very safe assumption here. And there was like 2 others that actually rug pulled that were also like serpents, which look just like dragons. And someone even took the Boryaku dragons, made it kind of shittier pixels, and forced it left. And they called them like the like irrelevant dragons or something like that. It was some bullshit. I don't even know. And sure enough, they ended up being a rug pull, and the floor dropped down to like zero point zero 0.01. So it's just been so interesting because right now that alpha's like make a pixel project, low quantity, say the word token, you're gonna sell out and trade 10x.
Yeah, I mean, there's clearly formulas that are built in. What are royalties typically like for the project creators on Solana? On ETH, a really great royalty would be like 2.5% on the
Mhm.
Sartoshi's MFers project that we covered earlier today, yesterday. If you're watching this on YouTube, which you definitely are, that was 2.5%. But then we see some projects have a really high one, like 10%. I know Deadfellows off the top of my head is 5%. Some are
Mhm.
7.5. What's the Solana one look like?
It's 5, like, through and through.
Always?
If yeah, that's like if your project's over 5,
Get
someone's
out
gonna
of
be
here.
like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
So, if you actually wanna pull up this is gonna be crazy. If you wanna pull up the, Meerkat Millionaire Country Club and just click on one of the NFTs there, they might not even be on Magic Eden because of royalties. Um, they might only be on Solanart, but they actually have a 15% royalty.
What?
Yeah, absolutely insane. And the reason is they give 100% of royalties back to holders and minters.
Okay.
So that's
So
interesting.
it's a
So it's almost
built-in mechanic to reward the people that hold.
yeah, exactly. So that's the big one. There's another called DGods, which is a 30% royalty if you sell it for under what you bought it for.
Right,
So
you
these two
shame people for selling for a
yeah.
loss.
So they call it the bitch tax. It's built into their smart contract where it checks last purchase price. If listed price is under it, charges a 30% fee. And that royalty fee is just sitting in a treasury for DGods holders, which is it's a nice kind of thing, but at the same time, it's almost like an artificial floor pump. And people are still selling under the floor because they'd rather just get out at times for that. What's crazy is those Meerkats was the first project on Sol to be like, we're giving back everything. Everything's going back to minters and holders. We don't even care. We're not going to make anything. We just want to drop this. The floor got up to a 40 Sol floor. This was one of, if not the first project actually minted from contract, and I got two of them. Sold one at 35, held through the 40, hoping it was going to go higher. It pulled back, got out at 25, and now you can see where the floor is. It's taken a relatively large hit, obviously, because a lot of marketplaces have actually delisted these projects for collecting royalties because of the fear of it becoming a security. So very fair thing. The Meerkats actually airdropped a secondary collection called Naked Meerkats that can be listed on every exchange, and they're giving 100% of those right back to these original holders. So I haven't checked in a while, but I'm pretty sure my minting contract, my minting wallet, still gets like $3 to $4 every other week from these. It's nothing great. Honestly, I kind of forget about it, but I'm glad to see they're still doing that. It's still kind of working out for some people. I know a few who are like Meerkat billionaires, and they have 100 of these, which for me, I don't know if I could ever ape that hard into any project on Sol. It's very much so a scalper's paradise at the moment.
Well, speaking of Scalper's Paradise, what I wanted to make sure that I asked you, because, obviously it's one thing to get in on these mints and to be all over it to figure out what's minting, this, that, and the other thing. But it's another thing to actually go on the secondary and make plays. So let's say right now, all right, so it's Tuesday night right now. People are watching this tomorrow on Wednesday. What is one like project, not financial advice, obviously. This is never financial advice. Do your own research. But what's one project that you would buy on the secondary on Solana right now?
So there's a couple. There's one that I actually do want to shout out called New Neon. It's only on Exchange Art, but they just launched their tools in Discord, and their tools are actually scraping CLI from Solana and giving you access to candy machines beforehand. So almost like a bot. And it just completely opens up the game. You can now mint right from contracts through the tools that New Neon released. So for people who are new into the Sol space, because it's a first in, first out model, not like ETH where gas can dictate, this is such a unique thing because these tools really do give you almost like a minter's edge. You have a slight advantage because you're not dealing with the web server crashing or a complicated website. You're actually minting right from a local page on your desktop. Um, and that's it's a relatively cheap entry right now. I think it's like 1.1 to 1.3 range.
What's it
But
called?
the new Neon, New space Neon. Yeah. So it's like yeah, they're all GIFs, all animated. There's a board ape one in there somewhere. I think that one's like a 4 Sol floor.
This looks
But
like it's
really
a Pepe.
yeah, there's a Pepe in there. There is in fact. But these tools are just incredible. The Discord has an automated bot the dev had created that's actively scalping Candy Machine and giving you values and contracts early. So some of these things just give you that edge. So for me, one of the things I've even asked is to start to get some more real-time trading data so that instead of just all pre-mint utility, we can start to get a better understanding of what's moving on floors, what projects are having the most volume in real time, very similar to what the Nifty has for ETH. Because if we start to get that, it can allow those people on secondary who miss mints to have a much better understanding of where that volume's coming from, what projects people are playing. You can then circle back to a Discord and gain insight. So for me, this is a great project if you're an active trader to get into, much like that Shy Guardians one I'm excited for. I just heard Magic Eden's API is coming out in 2 weeks for real-time data. So all of these things are slowly feeding in now. So I'm excited to start to see real utility on some of these projects. And this is one that I think if you're new to Solana, hesitant to start, but want to get an edge, it's beyond worth the cost right now. I was trading at point 0.2 earlier because one of the big Twitter personalities actually tweeted that this project was going to rug. And I knew for a fact it wasn't. I've had conversations with the dev around the bot he had built because I was fascinated on how he was scraping some of that data. Because I was like, all right, I want to get this and put it into like a web app dashboard. So I don't need to look at a Discord bot and I can get it more visually right on a web page. And after those conversations, I was like, yeah, this dev gets it. He's very good at the space. I'm bullish if he can continue to deliver tools, and they have. So this is one I'm actively looking at. If we want to look at some other kind of movers in the space, Dapper Ducks is another one on Magic Eden that I think secondary wise is going to continue to move. They just released a white paper on a very similar game to a Wolf game, but on Sol. So everyone thought Run Run Chicken would be the first Solana game to launch, but it looks like Dapper Ducks has actually created one before them. And you can see what's the floor 1.8 right now. If I'm seeing that
1.3.
correctly. Oh, 1.3. So this fell down. This was 2.5 earlier. But earlier today it was 0.4. So it's still up over 2.5x on secondary. I completely missed this play. I'm not in the Discord. I tend to leave Discords after I exit projects just because I have so many like notifications and I'm constantly going in and out of those. But this is where something like that floor monitoring tool would have came into play. We would have seen a lot of buys very quickly on all the floor items. We would have been able to tail it, but there's just no tool that gives you that yet. But they're really launching a first of its kind game. So they're airdropping hunters to 400 holders, and there's 4,444 ducks. Their staking mechanisms already released, and I believe the game's kicking off on Friday.
Okay. Well, yeah, I think that a lot of the tools that aren't available yet for Solana would make a big difference. So hopefully, those tools start to emerge. Hey, maybe Easy Eats will build some tools for Solana, and that'll be something everybody.
We're trying.
Hell yeah. Well, as usual, thanks so much. You gave people a ton of alpha on here. I appreciate the last two that you think, still have potential. Everyone, make sure you follow Easy Eats Bodega. That's at Easy Eats Bodega on Twitter. The Solana Specialist, the Solana Samurai, you already know. And he's coming on this show at least once a week. It's looking like it might be closer to twice a week. And we
Nothing wrong
always,
with that.
hey, we appreciate him and love having him on. Thanks so much for coming on, man.
I appreciate you. Thanks for having me. Hope everyone got some alpha from today.
Hell yeah. See you guys next time. Make sure you like and subscribe. Come on, do it.